now works with an extensive list of clientele from around the world, including small business owners, entrepreneurs, and Wall Street CEOs. After years of battling low self-confidence and an eating disorder and tying her work to external validation, Christina has created what she refers to as the best life ever, which includes a multi-six-figure business coaching clients from around the world. Through her signature decision, faith, and action framework, Christina has helped thousands of clients curate their own best life ever, which for many of her clients include multi-six and seven-figure businesses. She is one of only a handful of coaches who specialize specifically in building confidence using a one-on-one coach model, because she believes it's the long-term accountability and support from working on both mindset and strategy that creates sustainable and enjoyable long-term results of self-trust and confidence. Life is short, and Christina believes that deciding it's your turn to create a life and business you're obsessed with is a decision. Are you all ready to decide? I welcome to the podium Christina.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you, Adrian. I Googled Rotary because obviously, thank you for asking me to be here, but I'd heard of the Rotary before. However, I never really realized what y'all's mission was. And so in a quick Google search, I saw that it is people coming together to create lasting change in this world. And it made me think about a question I was recently asked from one of my podcast guests on my Decide It's Your Turn podcast. And he says that he doesn't ask people what they do for a living. Instead, he asks them if they had the ability to change one thing in this world, what would it be? And I thought that was such a great question. So I'd like to start by asking a few of you. If you had the power, the superpower, to change one thing in this world, what would it be? Anyone want to answer that question? Politics. I won't go any further. This is not that kind of lunch. Anyone else? Which? Hunger. Another one? Natural disasters. Homelessness. All great answers. So when he asked me that question, if I had the superpower or the ability to change one thing in this world, what would it be? And I said it would be this. I would grant everyone the confidence to live in their purpose, to do the thing that they ultimately say they want to do. Because over the last 13 years, since I failed to become a professional golfer, I've realized that there's 4 main reasons why people fail to do the thing that they say they want to do on this planet. And today I want to discuss what those 4 things are, the lessons that I've learned that have not only allowed me to, what I say, live in my purpose and create the life that I'm obsessed with, like we said in the bio, but also allowed me to create millions of dollars in business revenue at this point in time. So I want to share what those 4 things are. The first one, why people lack the confidence, in my opinion, to do the things that they say they want to do, is their fear of failure. I am standing in a room full of hundreds of you, and I'm sure not one of you have ever been afraid to fail, right? No one in this room has ever been afraid to fail? Anyone? Am I the only one who's been afraid to fail? Well, I can tell you with 100% certainty, the reason why I failed to become a professional golfer was my fear of failure. I always felt that if I didn't accomplish becoming a professional golfer, what were people going to say? If I never got my tour card, what was I going to do? If I never made the money, if I never got the sponsorships, I was scared to death to fail. And I'll tell you, over the last 13 years, that I have 100% certainty learned more from my failures than I ever have in my successes. And unfortunately, I think we live in a world where people are told that failure is a bad thing. And I would love for us to change that narrative, because I know for a fact learning from my failures has actually been able to get me to where I want to go and build my confidence and do the thing that I say that I wanted to do. And so I think if we change that narrative and become less afraid to fail and just realize it's part of it, and we learn the lessons and get to where we want to go faster, we would all be in a much better place. So recently on my podcast, I had a gentleman I interviewed. It was one of my favorite interviews of all time. I would highly encourage you to go listen to it, not for me, but because of the stories that were so wonderful. His name is T.P. Chopra, and he was the former vice president of GE Aviation here in the United States before he became the president of GE in India. You know that small company, GE? Well, he became the president of GE in India, and now he owns a sustainable energy company in India. It's hugely successful, and I had the pleasure of interviewing him. And he told me why he's not afraid to fail and why he's always afraid, or why he's never afraid to take those big risks in life. Listening, who has put perhaps business before family for a long period of time.
Yeah, I think as we grow older, Christina, priorities change, right? When we are down, I guess at our age now, we have the back of it. Life's not that long. You really think about it, right? And all of us are inconsequential in the big scheme of things, right? What amazes me is that even if you're Jack Welch, right? Jack passed away, it's been 2 years, a year now, 2 years now, getting somewhere around 2 years. And if I go to kids today and say, Jack Welch, they have no idea who Jack was, right? And I think to myself, he was born for us, right? When I was a little kid, an associate at GE, I remember shaking his hand for the first time, and I was just a wonderful boy in the company. It was like my thing was me, and I was like, wow, I shook his hand today. So that's what it is. And yet, so many years later, the people, the next generation won't remember the guy. So it's as a result of it, it makes you think, what's life all about? Number one.
So that was one of my absolute favorite interviews to this day. I would highly encourage you to listen to it. The stories that he told about Jack Welch and about his career and how he got to be as successful as he was are truly incredible, and how he left GE and started his own company and became an entrepreneur who's so unbelievably successful. It literally was one of my favorite interviews of all time. So the number one reason why people fail, or the number one reason why people lack the confidence to do the thing they say they want to do, is the fear of failure. The second thing that affects a lot of people and allows them not to do the thing that they want to do is the feeling of inadequacy, not feeling worthy, or the good old imposter syndrome. So I can tell you with 100% certainty, when I was in my late teens, early 20s, not untypical, but I 100% struggled with not feeling worthy, not feeling confident. I had extremely low self-esteem. I always based my worth on the next thing. I called it the atta girl. When I make the money, I'll be happy. When I lose the weight, I'll be happy. When I get the tour card, I'll be happy, whatever it is. And unfortunately, what I've come to realize is that that is actually not the way it works. So as a Christian, I do believe that we were born worthy. You can't earn your worthiness. However, I also do believe that adequacy and not feeling like an imposter is built. I believe that it is built by taking action. So I always say that confidence is like a muscle. The more that you use it, the stronger it will become. I'd like to share a quick story with you where I felt like a complete imposter. So back in 2014, in the height of my professional golf career, so I never actually played golf on tour, but I also did a lot of corporate and charity golf events. So companies hired me to play golf with executives. I created business connections on the golf course. I was really quite fantastic at it, to be 100% honest with you. I was making great money, like clients were paying me like $10,000 a day to play golf with executives. It was a lot of fun. So in 2014, I was in Alberta, Canada, doing an event. I'd probably done it for them for about 5 years at that point in time. And in 2014 in Alberta, the oil industry was booming in Canada. Basically, they had more money than they knew what to do with. And the gentleman who put the tournament together came to me and said, Christina, we want to take this year's event over the top, and we want you to put it together. And in that moment, I was like, inside, I was like, what the heck? I can't do this. I'm not a sports agent. Who the hell am I to do this thing? Why are you asking me to do this thing? But I had already been starting to learn the power of the mind, and I knew that if I just took one action, I'd figure it out. So I felt like a complete imposter taking on this role, but he said, can you do it? And I said, absolutely. I went home that night and I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I was feeling completely inadequate. Well, a few weeks prior, I was a part of a golf tournament. I don't even really remember where it was, but the gentleman who was putting it on, his name was Peter Jacobson. And if anyone knows golf, you may know does anyone know the name Peter Jacobson? Few people in the golf industry. He was huge at the time. He had an actual events company. He brought in celebrity golfers. They put on these big events, these fundraiser charity things. So he actually knew what he was doing, but I was brought in a part of it. I never put it together, but I called Peter and I said, hey, Peter, do you happen to have the phone number for David Faraday? And back in 2014, David Faraday was basically at the beginning of really his peak of his career. The Faraday Show was just about to start on television. He was a big deal. Did people know David Faraday in here? Probably more David Faraday than Peter Jacobson. Great guy. So I called Peter. I said, can you give me his agent's number? So I took that next step. I was like, okay, call the agent. So then I called the agent, and I got on the phone acting like I knew what I was doing when I absolutely did not. Went back to my client and I said, hey, I got Peter Jacobson, or I got David Faraday. So my client was thrilled to death. I ended up working it out with his sports agent. I put the whole entire event together. So like I had $100,000 at the time. I signed David for like $50,000. I organized his travel. I organized the event. I organized everything for the day, the men's member guest, like from top to bottom. So the day arrives that keep confusing Peter and David. David arrives at the airport, and so I head to the airport, and I am in this blue dress. So I cruise into the airport, pick David up, and I can tell that he is not exactly happy. He comes out, and he had been traveling for a long time. You just knew that he was stressed out. And I looked at him immediately, and of course, they lost his luggage as well. So I looked at him, introduced myself, and he's just like, basically like looked at me like, who's this girl picking me up? But in that moment, again, I kind of felt like an imposter, like, you're right, I'm no one. But I really stepped into action and I said, let me handle this. So I go up to the Delta desk and I organize his luggage to be delivered to the hotel. We had a smaller dinner that night, the first night that I picked him up, and I had been doing my research on David at the time because I really wanted to make sure that this event went off without a hitch. And so we got in the car and he has no luggage. We're headed to this event. I could tell he's quite grouchy, but I'd been doing my research. And fun fact, David likes hunting way more than he even likes golf. So I knew on the way to dinner there was like a Bass Pro, and I was like, hey, do you want to cruise into Bass Pro? Grab you something to wear. We can change at the hotel. And at that point in time, I started warming up to him. So we went to the dinner. It was absolutely a fantastic dinner. The next day, the event went off without a hitch. And that event taught me two things. Number one, you're only an imposter if you're pretending to be something you're not. I knew that I could figure it out if I just kept taking those next steps, that next step and that next step. And the other thing is what else I learned is that adequacy and not feeling like an imposter is built. You 100% can just take that next step to build that resiliency muscle, to build that, not feeling like an imposter. Still to this day, David and I are good friends, and that event really took my career to the next level in putting together those events. I've done numerous events with David from that moment on. So that really taught me in that moment that, the imposter syndrome can go away by taking those actions. So the third thing that I think holds a lot of people back from having the confidence to do the thing that they say they want to do is the lack of resiliency. So in my career now as a performance and mindset coach, a lot of my clients come from referrals. However, a lot of my clients come from social media. And as most of you probably know with social media is that on social media, you can say whatever the heck you want to say. And 90% of the crap that's on the internet is just that. It is crap. And unfortunately, I think that we live in a society, especially in my industry, like the social media coaching space, performance space, people say crazy things like, make $1 million from your couch, or $10,000 a day, or you don't even have to work hard, and if you just visualize it, it will happen. And I'll be honest with you, I'm a big proponent of the visualization. I'm a big proponent of that. But one thing that I believe to be true, and sitting in a room full of very successful people, I'm sure you agree, that you're gonna have to work hard. You're gonna actually have to do some hard things. And resiliency muscle is unfortunately something that we are being taught that people don't need. And I think it's one of the biggest keys to success personally. Your willingness to fail and get back up, your willingness to figure out a way to yes, basically. So in 2019, a quick story for you on this resiliency thing. So in 2019, I had the pleasure of climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. I wonder if that's the next slide. Oh, there it is, perfect. So I had the pleasure of climbing Mount Kilimanjaro with a group of people from Canada, and a quick story on that in a second. But on that trip, I was climbing with a mentor of mine, a gentleman who has literally the most positive attitude on the planet. He's probably got 4 to 6 businesses that all do well over 8 figures, extremely successful, good friend of mine, extremely positive. And he told me something on that trip that I share with a lot of my clients, and I believe it to be true. He said in his life and in his business, he believes that there is always a way to yes. And your ability to believe and know that there is always a way to yes for anything that you want is one of the reasons why he is as successful as he is. His PMA, he calls it. And if you know anything about Napoleon Hill, is anyone Think and Grow Rich? Anyone into that kind of stuff? Am I the only one? You should really read those books. They're fantastic. But positive mental attitude, always finding a way to yes, is, I believe, one of the biggest things that you can possibly do in order to have the confidence to do the things that you say that you want to do. So going back to Mount Kilimanjaro, another quick story in resiliency. So in 2019, like I said, I had the pleasure of climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. And how this came about, it was kind of funny. I was doing a charity golf event back in 2019. At that point in time, I'd really stepped more into the career that I have now, the performance and mindset coaching. But I had been doing this golf tournament for over 10 years. I had a really great repertoire with the charity. It was a children's hospital in Canada in 2019. And the day before the golf tournament, I had, we'd always gone to dinner the day before. I'd raised like $500,000 for this children's charity over the last 10 years. Great, really got on really well with the board members. So we had headed to dinner, and we're just, shooting the stuff, and sitting at dinner, and they said, "Hey, do you know what we're doing next?" And I said, "Aren't we playing golf tomorrow?" I was like, "Yeah, that's what we're doing." Like, "No, we're going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro." And I said, "Oh my God, how cool is that?" And the president of the board at the time said, "You should come with us." And I was like, "Oh, okay, well, 2 questions for you. 1, where's Mount Kilimanjaro?" For those of you who do not know, because I was the only one in that room who did not know, it is in Tanzania, Africa. So the second question I had for them was, "Okay, cool, how long do we have to train for this? Like a year, 6 months?" They're like, "We leave in 30 days. You have to sign the paperwork in 2 days." I was like, "Oh, okay." So next morning, went and did the golf tournament, flew home that night, and I came home and I sat my husband down at dinner and I said, "Babe, so the Stollery asked me for something," and he's like, "Yeah, they always ask you to work for them. You're not moving back to Canada." I was like, "Amen to that. American citizen, most proudest one you'll find." But I said, "No, they actually want me to go climb Mount Kilimanjaro with them." And he's like, "Oh." And he said, "Okay, well, 2 questions for you. Number 1, is it safe?" And I said, "Well, there's 2 other females going, there's 9 guys going, and apparently it's the best guiding company that money can buy. So I'm assuming yes." And the second question he said was, "Well, our family motto is we do hard things. So you better start training." And in that moment, I knew that I had to do this thing. And so it was September of 2019. It was 115 degrees. Y'all know this. It was 115 degrees. And I literally ordered everything on that packing list from Amazon. The only thing on that packing list that I actually had that I didn't have to order was toilet paper. But everything else on that packing list I had to order, from boots to bags to, just the list is crazy of all the things you needed to do. But I strapped on those boots, I signed that paper, and I literally climbed Pinnacle twice a day, every day, wore my hiking boots on the Stairmaster at the gym. I swear to you, someone probably has a photo of that. I look like the biggest idiot on the planet. But I was preparing not to die on that mountain in 28 days. I actually created, and I'm a big proponent of the resiliency and all of the things, but a big proponent of the mindset behind it. So I created an affirmation that day that I signed the paperwork with 28 days before I left. And I said, I will summit healthy and safely. I will return home with a glass of champagne in first class. And all of those things became true. But I will tell you, if you want to see my Kilimanjaro journey, you can find me on Instagram at @Christina, and there is a highlight that says Kilimanjaro. Even though I did summit healthy and safely, there was 12 of us, 3 people didn't make it to the top. I did summit healthy and safely. I did return home drinking champagne in first class and slept the rest of the way. But I did almost die on that mountain, which is funny now I can say it. Like 5 years later, I was like, yes, I actually did almost die in Kilimanjaro. And I remember like blacking out and saying, do not let them take me to the hospital. But all of that to be said, it worked out fantastically. It was one of the greatest experiences of my life, and I would highly recommend it to anyone, even though I did almost die. So that experience taught me the resiliency muscle about finding a way to yes and doing hard things. My husband and I actually, for the last, 6 or 7 years, we wear these bracelets every single day. My husband doesn't wear a wedding ring, but he wears this every single day, and it has our family affirmation typed into it. And one of the things on here is the hard things. So we are always willing to do hard things. So the fourth reason why people lack the confidence to do the things that they say to do, that they want to do in life, and I think this is the most important one, is a lot of people lack their why, their purpose. Like, why do you want to accomplish that thing? And with 100% certainty, the reason why I failed as a professional golfer was it wasn't my why. I was playing professional golf because I was told I was supposed to. I was told I was good at it. I was told that it was going to make me money and make me happy and do all the things. And I checked those boxes, a lot of them. I never got my tour card, but I checked a lot of the boxes, and unfortunately, I wasn't happy. However, along the way, I did learn that I was the person in charge of my happiness. I was the person in charge of my life. And when I took personal responsibility for my life and reprogrammed my stories, thoughts, patterns, and habits, I learned that I actually had the ability to create a life that I'm obsessed with. And I stand in front of you today knowing that I literally feel like I have the greatest, bestest life on the whole entire planet because I decided it. And figuring that out along my journey of the last 13 years has become my why. Helping people do the exact same thing has become my why. And it's the reason why I'm so confident at what I do. It's the reason why even when I'm afraid, even when I feel inadequate, even when I feel like an imposter, it's the reason why I can keep going. It's the reason why I've had the success that I've had is because my why is so strong. And so in summary, I will say, literally, in order to have the confidence to do the things that you say you want to do, number one, screw fear. At the end of the day, we're all scared at some point in time, but life, like TP said, life is so short, it literally does not matter. Like, everyone is scared at some point in time. Just do the damn thing. Number two, adequacy and not feeling like an imposter goes away the more that you do it. Like, a lot of people think that they're going to be motivated at one point in time. I always say, like, that's backwards. You're never really motivated. Like, currently right now, my husband and I are on a program called 75 Hard. It's like, does anyone know what that is? 75 Hard? Oh, wow, like no one. Awesome. It's a stupid program, but a lot of people look at it as a weight loss program. I should have a photo of my husband would have shot me had I put that photo up there. But I look like an idiot on social media. Leanne knows, she follows me on social media. She's like, oh my gosh, my husband is the greatest human ever because he's such a great trooper about what I put on social media. But the first time we did 75 Hard, a lot of people look at it as like, a weight loss program. It's 100% not. It's a mindset program. It literally builds mental strength, in my opinion. And the first time we did it, he lost like 18 pounds. But, you know, going back to like the reason why I brought this up is like most people think they're going to be motivated. I don't think motivation comes in the beginning. I think you start taking actions and doing things and you become motivated. And so to get rid of the feeling of inadequacy or an imposter or to start getting motivated, just remember, start taking actions and then the motivation will come. The third thing is that resiliency is built by taking actions and doing hard things. And a lot of people try to avoid hard things, but I will tell you, doing the hard things is really where the greatness comes in life, in my opinion. And the last thing I would say is just like find your why, know your why. It's so much easier to get up and keep going when you know your why. So thank you for having me so much today. I'm so grateful that I failed as a professional golfer because now I get to do what I absolutely love to do. And thank you for having me today. I appreciate it.